So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today on grief and trauma. Again, welcome, and thank you for taking time out. I know we have a lot of busy schedules going on and a lot of struggling that's also happening around us. So today our presenter is Dr. Otilia Hunter. And oops, sorry, my computer is glitching. And she's going to be walking us through our presentation today. And just a little bit of information about Dr. Hunter. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor and approved supervisor and a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor and approved supervisor for the state of Maryland. Dr. Hunter has vast experience in this space of psychology and wellness. She has an extensive career as a mental health professional. And I wanted to point out that her experience is about 20 years old. So she definitely brings a wealth of knowledge to the consulting space, working with organizations on mental health and substance abuse, as well as working in private practice and local government. So today's presentation will be directed by her. Please feel free to ask questions as we go in the chat box. I will be managing that, so you can either raise your hand and I can see you and take you off mute, or you can type your queries in the chat box as we're going along as something sparks your interest. So Dr. Hunter, I will turn it over to you. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. So good morning, everyone, because some of the names are familiar, so some people know me. I'm Carrie-Ann Peart, and I'm the Special Advisor for the Health and Human Services and Education portfolio in the County Executive's Office here in Prince George's County. So I'll just say that because it's a swath of things that I manage and cover for our team. So welcome. Dr. Hunter?
Thank you so much, Carrie-Ann. First, I want to say thank you to everybody for taking time out of your day this morning. We're going to cover loss, grief, and vicarious trauma, especially how it's impacting us during the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't want to say crisis because it makes it seem like we can't manage this, but it is a pandemic. And I also want to remind you that, it's a very stressful time, but sometimes understanding where you are and how you feel helps us to be able to deal with those feelings and be able to be successful navigating through them. So we're going to start out this morning with our objectives. Do I still have control, Carrie-Ann? Oh, there it is. So our objectives today, we're going to discuss what is loss. We're going to discuss what is grief, dealing with loss and grief, an overview of vicarious trauma during COVID-19, and then coping strategies for all of them, including resilience, which is very important. And as we talk about that, you'll see how resilience can be very helpful in all areas of your life. So loss, according to Oxford Dictionary, is the fact or process of losing something or someone. So a lot of times we always associate loss with just someone, but that's not the case. It can be something. So during this time, loss is really like our way of life, being at the office every day, being able to come and go as we choose, being able to visit with family members, numerous things that we once were able to do, but we aren't able to do anymore. And so we're experiencing that loss. It could be a person or thing that is badly missed when lost. So again, it goes back to the things that we have lost. It is a state of feeling of grief when deprived of someone or something of value. So what's interesting is for a lot of people, I've heard them talk about, they complained about their jobs and they complained about the things that they did every day. And then when they couldn't do that anymore, they realized that there actually was a loss there, and they were beginning to grieve these experiences, even the connection with individuals. And it could be something that you never, or someone that you never thought you would miss, but you might miss the conversations that you had or the way that you went back and forth with them. So it's not necessarily that something has to die in order for it to be a loss. It could just be something that you can't do anymore, or something that has been restricted from you, as we know that has happened during this time. So I thought this was very appropriate. Here we see someone sitting on the end of a pier, and a lot of times loss feels like you're alone, and as though no one can relate to what you're going through. But I think the fact that we're all here today is a representation of the fact that we all feel like we are in this space to some degree. So I encourage you to allow yourself to feel in the process and understand that alone doesn't mean lonely, because a lot of times people will misconstrue that. So you want to be able to know that you're in this place and that you are having these feelings, but you have to acknowledge those feelings in order to be able to process them through. And that will oftentimes require you to form a connection with either with someone or something. And so a lot of times that connection is with someone, and that's when we get to the grieving process. So grief is our response, our natural response to loss. Grief is psychological. Grief is the outward show of what someone is feeling internally. So I can't tell you how to process your loss, but I do know that in some way you will grieve the things that you've lost. And that's where many of us are at this time. So grief being our response to loss is our way of dealing with that and us trying to make sense of it all. And I think that has been what's been very difficult for a lot of us is we can't make sense of it. Like I alluded to earlier, you may have thought every day when you got up and got in your car that you didn't want to drive to work, but then when you couldn't do it anymore, that loss of connection with all of those people that you would go in and talk to. I realized that I don't sit all day, that I would actually go into people's offices and I would have conversations with them. And so I really felt a sense of loss in that. We're trying to make sense of how our lives have changed so much and wondering if things will ever be the same again. So some people don't understand the feelings they're having because they have not had a loss that is directly tied to them in terms of losing someone. So you can say, I don't know about grief, but there is a sense of loss. I've had people come in and talk to me who have retired. There's a sense of connection with your job, your identity to who you are. So I'm a therapist, right? And to not be a therapist, that would be a huge loss for me. And it's always kind of a joke when people ask me to do things that I know are unethical. And I was like, nope, I have a license. Like, this is my livelihood. But I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the very thing that's important to me, because I would grieve that. So some of the ways that that the grief really impacts us is how we've watched news nonstop and watched the numbers climb, first worldwide and now in our community. And in terms of people getting sick or people who have deceased, who have, because of this virus. So how do we begin to deal with those feelings? How do we begin to process it? Are some of the things that we really kind of need to look at in response to this. So dealing with loss and grief in COVID-19, and I don't know how well you all can see this slide, but it's the loss cycle. And so it talks about, and this isn't about Kubler-Ross's, the stages of grief. This is not what we're talking about, because a lot of people will kind of go there because there's no particular stage. You don't stay one place and for a particular time. This is a combination of a number of things and how we can actually process that. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to learn to let go of what we can't control. And that's really hard to do for us when we live in an environment and in a world where we kind of need to feel like we have our hands on everything. Excuse me. Allow yourself to feel. So if you know that you're having feelings and these feelings aren't familiar to you, allow yourself to have those feelings so that you can begin to, the third thing, process those feelings. And, processing them is key to how you really begin to deal with loss and grief. And then be kind to those around you. So one of the things that I try and tell people is grief is one of those things that doesn't go anywhere. So you could say, oh yes, I experienced a loss, and you got to pick yourself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and keep it moving and keep going. And I'm not going to deal with it and it'll just go away with time. But that's not how grief works. Grief has to be dealt with. So you have to begin to process it. But you can't do that until you allow yourself to feel. So touch base with you. What's really going on inside of you? Have some reflective time and be honest with yourself. If you're not having a great day or if you're struggling with your thoughts, then be honest with yourself about that first, right? understand that grief is like an ocean. One moment you fine, the next moment you're not. If you've ever gone to the beach, you're standing there, and I grew up in Southern California. You're standing there, and the waves are these really small waves, and then you look up, and this one big wave comes, and boom, it knocks you down. And grief is kind of the same way. So you have to be prepared for the big waves. And it's okay. It's okay to feel in those moments. The thing to remember in all of that is that it is okay, and to be kind to yourself. Find meaning in your life, in the things around you. I keep telling people that there's good that's happening in the midst of COVID-19. So I share with you that I'm from California, so you kind of have to understand I'm a little bit of a tree hugger, right? So when I found out that the hole in the ozone had closed, I was so elated. So as quickly as we discovered that it was there, it's now gone. And it's gone because the whole world kind of shut down and the earth began to heal itself, right? And so I'm like, wow, like the earth is healing itself. So what are we doing? I began to look around me, and I'm noticing for the first time in my neighborhood, whole families that are walking together, like the moms, the dads, the small children, they've got a baby in the stroller, right? And I'm thinking, they've probably never spent this much time together as a family, or they haven't in a very long time. You go through this courtship and you get married, and then life happens and you just kind of all go your separate ways, and then you're parenting together and things like that. But people are actually together. And as much as I know nobody wants to be a teacher, right? I'm a parent. I didn't want to be a teacher at home, right? You actually get to spend time with your children, and you get to spend time with your significant other. You're connecting with those who really are part of your circle. You know, the Zoom is the new thing, and they're doing all kinds of stuff with it. And I was laughing with Carrie Ann about we have to learn this new etiquette with Zoom, the way we did when we all started emailing. And I know I'm dating myself. I grew up with the dinosaurs, right? And they were like, don't do all capital letters and don't do this. And so, you know, people forgot to put their Zoom or mute, and you get to hear all of their conversation that they're having with other people, right? So, but when you do it, and you do it with your friends or your family members, it's really amazing that you can connect in this way. I know people who have really, honestly, found love. I had one of my clients who had for years been looking to meet her special somebody. And what this did is it forced her into a position where she had to get to know that person in a distance. And now they're like, this is it. This is forever for them. And I think it's like really great, but it put her in a different place. And so there's good that happens in the midst of this. I share all of this to say that there's good that happens in the midst of this. And sometimes we focus on all the negative, but in the midst of the loss and the grief, we have to remember to find the good in it too. So even as we look at this loss cycle, and we remember to be kind to those around us and kind to ourselves, remember to look for what's good in the world. This is really apropos, right? Grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm, and sometimes it is overwhelming. All we can learn to do is swim. So it reminds me of Dory from Finding Nemo, right? Just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And so when we talk about the grief, just know that you got to get up, and every day you have that moment, and you push through that moment, you process it, and you're gonna keep going, because guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna have that moment again, and you may have it again, but you got to learn to move through it. And so you can't predict it. You can't really wait for it, because then you're not living. You process, and you keep living through these moments, and you learn to process them in a different way. And your thoughts will change, and how you feel about things will change. And you have to understand that that's all normal. So we talk about norming when we talk about grief, right? Because it has to be processed, right? So it's better to do it when you're feeling it than you try and put it on this shelf and it doesn't go anywhere. And then it comes down at the most inappropriate time. So just know that you're gonna feel, and you're gonna go through some things, and it's okay. Remember the ocean. Remember that analogy. And remember that you're going to learn to swim, and you're going to swim through it, and you're going to process through it. So how does all of this play into vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma is the ultimate empathy, right? It is your ability to understand and share the feelings of others. What greater way than that, right? I will tell you that honestly, it's something that was coined in terms of people who are in the helping profession. But I think the thing that I've seen here is vicarious trauma across the board, because we have the innate ability to feel what others are going through, even when we ourselves don't experience it. So if you're watching TV all the time, and I can tell you, I was like everybody else in the beginning, my TV was never off. And I needed all the information I could get. I was on the news feeds and I was everywhere. But I also began to feel for the people. I began to feel for the doctors, and I began to feel for the nurses. And yes, I'm in the helping profession, and being empathetic is part of who I am. But I think what's happening is I'm seeing that in the community around us. So it's in times like this that we're actually, we grieve what other people are going through. We're grieving what's happening in our communities. We go to sleep, and even though we're safe in our homes and we know that we're not sick, we're worried about the people who are sick. We're worried about the people who have yet to get sick. We're worried that it's gonna come close to our home. And in the beginning, all of this was somebody else's problem. And then it became part of what we were dealing with in our own community. And even if it didn't affect you personally, you were seeing it, and slowly but surely you knew somebody. I know very few people who don't know somebody, whether it was a church member, somebody they work with, somebody in their community that has not been impacted by COVID-19. And that feeling of empathy, that ability to understand and share those feelings is what vicarious trauma is. And it's what we're seeing as we move through this COVID-19 pandemic. So how are we affected by it? And I shared this earlier. Constantly watching news reports, the number of COVID-19 positives, including the deaths and dying. Nonstop conversation with family and friends about the pandemic. I can say I'm not going to watch TV, and if I take a phone call, sure enough, it comes up in the phone conversation, right? Loved ones affected by it, disruption in our normal life, including support systems. And these are some of the things that we need in order to protect us from the vicarious trauma. There's some protective layers, and we're going to talk about it in the next couple of slides when we talk about resiliency, right? No break between work and home for those that are teleworking. So I can tell you that I really gained an appreciation for the fact that I used to get up from my desk and walk into somebody else's office, because I'm sitting in a chair at a computer all day. And that break between work and home got really, really gray for a really, really long time. And then feelings of hopelessness. You know, sometimes we're sitting home and we're like, how do I make a difference? What is it that I can do? And those are all things that we know come from vicarious trauma. So again, initially the pandemic was for everybody else. Now it's part of what we're dealing with. So this makes it close to us as we listen, and it's what translates to vicarious trauma. I love word clouds. I just think they're cool. So you have to excuse me because I interjected one. And this is one that deals with vicarious trauma. It talks about compassion. It talks about traumatized symptoms. It talks about care. It talks about child disorders as secondary, health, post-traumatic experiences, awareness, fatigue, all of that happens with it. So if you've been tired and fatigued and you're home all day, or you can't sleep at night, these are some of this can give you an indication of why not. So we're gonna move forward and look at how this falls into categories for us. So what are some physical symptoms of vicarious trauma? Just a few of them. You're exhausted. So you go to bed every night, you get in your bed, you go to sleep, you wake up, you're still tired. It doesn't make sense, right? Excuse me. But it's because you're not resting. Or for those of you who can't go to sleep, or go to sleep and don't stay asleep, which is insomnia, right? You're struggling. So I had somebody say, I woke up at 1 o'clock and I stayed awake until 3:30. And all I'm thinking is, I was rolling over sucking sleep out the air at 3:30. And so if you're awake, it's because something's going on in your brain, right? And we know that we process stuff in our sleep time. So there was a report recently about people having strange dreams. We know that 10% of what we process in our conscious. 90% ends up in our subconscious, and we will process that. And if what we don't finish processing when we're awake, guess when you process it? When you're asleep. And so that can lead to insomnia. That can lead to why people are exhausted. So you have to be conscious of what it is that your brain is trying to process through. Headaches. Headaches are another symptom of vicarious trauma. You have them. Sometimes they start in the base of your neck, or they'll be right here. I have friends who have really bad migraines. Physical body tension, where you just feel like you're tight everywhere, in your shoulders, in your back, in your arms. I know somebody who clenches their fists all the time, a friend of mine, right? And I always pay attention, if you do this for a living, you watch body language, right? And so I know when they're doing that something's going on, because when nothing's going on, they're fine. Getting sick. It's interesting, when you're under stress, your body is susceptible to illnesses. And so you don't want to carry this stress. So you get sick even when you know you've been taking care of yourself and you're getting enough sleep. Other things are like heart palpitations, which you can't explain, sore back and neck, breakouts and rashes, things like that, all physical symptoms of vicarious trauma. Behavioral signs. This is one thing that I've cautioned people about. The liquor stores are open. They are essential. They have stated that the liquor sales have gone up about 70%. Some people have really increased their use of alcohol, and for others of other drugs. Those are telltale signs that there's something going on. Increased levels of anger or irritability, you're resentful, you're constantly being cynical, like those are all signs of vicarious trauma. Feeling disconnected from your body, like I'm here, but I'm really not here. Like I want to be somewhere else. I'm in this space, but I'm not in this space. Again, feeling hopeless and or helpless about the future. There is a certain bit of uncertainty about what's going on, right? But if you've ever gone through anything in your life, at the beginning of that, you were like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through. And then on the back end, you praising whoever your higher power is, and you're like, I made it through, right? We know that we are resilient people and that we push through and we're able to do the things that we need to do. You get to the point where you're not returning phone calls. You really don't want to talk to anybody. Don't want to have any conversation. You're starting to see problems in your relationship. And of course, if it's you always say it's the other person, right? So usually the one who's pointing the finger is the one who's probably struggling the most, right? And this is Otiliaism, so don't take this and say, oh, that's the way it is. But look at you. Take that personal inventory first. About why you're having problems. Maybe it's really some stuff that you're processing. Pay attention to how you're feeling, and responding to others is really, really important. You have to know something is not quite right to change directions and move in the right direction. But first you have to acknowledge that something's not quite right, okay? So for those of you who are Lord of the Rings fans, this will seem really familiar, right? Frodo Baggins. How do you pick up the threads of an old life? How do you go on when in your heart you begin to understand there is no going back? And for us, we're going to talk about new norms. We're going to talk about what this looks like going forward. If any of you watched the county exec this morning, they talked about some of the things that are going into place and some of what those are going to set up our new norms. New norms aren't bad. It's just we're moving forward. So we have to be able to be patient and loving with each other as we move forward, knowing that we're establishing new norms. And remember, I talked about those new norms when I talked about grief. So what's a huge thing? Sleep hygiene. It's really big. If you are taking your laptop to bed, I'm going to tell you don't do that. If you're on your cell phone constantly in bed, I'm gonna say don't do that. Your body needs to associate going to bed with going to sleep. So what are some of the things for good sleep hygiene? Go to bed and get up at the same time every day. So I can tell you, I wake up at 6 o'clock every day. I lay down at 10 o'clock every night. And I've maintained that schedule even while working from home. Don't eat or drink too much when it's close to bedtime. Why? Because your body's trying to process it. Here's a funny story. Years ago, when I lived in California, we had this place called Dorina's. So they used to sell hot dogs, all hot dogs any kind of way you could fix it. And I used to go get chili dogs with onions on them. Well, one night I got chili dog with onions on it and I ate it right before I went to bed and I had the worst nightmares. And so after that, they were called nightmare dogs. And I eventually stopped eating them because I realized that my body could not allow me to sleep and process these chili cheese dog with onions late at night, right? So that's my story about eating really late. But there's people who always want to have like that midnight snack. And I know you sleep so good when you're full, right? But that's usually for a nap. So you don't want to eat too much when you get ready to go to bed late at night, right? If you take naps, keep them short and before 5 p.m. So you don't want to say at 6 o'clock, I need a nap. Usually I'm like, no, don't take the nap. Don't take the nap. It's too late to take the nap. And you don't want to sleep for a long time. So you don't want to lay down for a nap and sleep for 2 hours because that's not a nap. You actually want to sleep in the middle of the day. Exercise regularly. It's really important. It wears your body out. It keeps you regulated. I can tell you, I get up at 6 o'clock every morning and I work out every day. I do between 4 and 6 miles. I do the cardio. I do the weights. Why? Because it's part of my body being healthy. And if I keep my body healthy, then I keep my mind healthy. And for those of you who are runners, you know, you get this runner's high and everything kind of blanks out and then you resolve all the issues in the world. Develop rituals. When you're winding down and getting ready to go to bed. And part of that should be that you're turning off electronics. So one of the things you don't want to have is what we call blue light, right? Go to bed in the dark. Oh, keep the bedroom a relaxing place. Avoid work or paying bills in bed. Like, I don't know who would want to pay bills in bed because you talk about the 90% that goes into my brain. Like, who wants to think about like bills when they're going to sleep? Because I can't imagine what those nightmares would look like. I think the bedroom should be for sleeping. I'm one of those people. Yes, I'm a therapist. I always tell people take the TV out of the bedroom because you shouldn't be watching TV in the bedroom. You should be doing things that you do in the bedroom that are conducive to sleep and things like that. Go to bed in the dark in a quiet room, not too hot or not too cold, which is really important. The weather just changed. If you're like me, I hadn't quite turned on my air conditioner yet. And it was really warm last night. So I was like, today I'll turn on the air because I need to cool the house off because I need to be able to sleep in a nice, cool place. And don't lie in bed awake. So if you're in the bed and you're awake, you want to be able to get up. You want to get up and you want to get out of the bed until you know that you're ready to go to sleep because you don't want your body to associate being awake in the bed. So those are good tips for sleep hygiene. If you adhere to some of those, I could assure you get a better night's sleep, kind of do away with some of the insomnia and things like that. And here's a healing tree. I don't know how clear it can come through for you all, but it's a really beautiful tree. And really the base of the tree is really important. The trunk states communion and connection on one side and awareness on the other. And one of the things that we have to do right now is be very aware. We need to be aware of where we are, who's around us. We're physically distancing, but that doesn't mean isolation from the world. We're still connected. We still commune with each other in various formats. We need to be very aware of what's going on around us, and that's important. So some of the main subjects from the tree, if we move from the left and go around, is creation, process, and practices, right? And so that actually deals with singing, listening to music, journaling, things like that. Because remember I talked about allowing yourself to have those feelings and those emotions. You want to be able to write them down so that you can start processing them. The next thing is movement practices. Tai Chi, you don't need to be around a bunch of people. You can do Tai Chi all on your own. It's slow practices, it's slow movement practices, and it's a mindfulness. Walking meditation, you can go walking in your neighborhood, right? And you can meditate while you're doing that. Or for some people who have a labyrinth, you can walk the labyrinth. Stillness practices, silence. Work happens in the silence. I tell people that and they don't believe me, but it's true, it really does. Work happens in the silence, and some people are very, very uncomfortable with it. But if you will allow yourself to be in that silence, you'll find that you'll begin to process through some things and you'll get insight, and you might even find yourself meditating. Quiet and clearing your mind helps you. So these are some of the things that you can practice before you go to sleep if you've got too much going on up there, right? Activist work. So we can't really do a whole lot of volunteering right now, but what we can do is reach out to people. So I've made it a point to try and reach out to people who I know can't really get out. If they need something, you know, I see it happening all over, and I do it too. I'll leave something on somebody's doorstep. I don't want to come in contact with them. I'll leave it on their doorstep. So there's still things that you can do. Generative practices. So prayer, whatever that looks like for you. And visualization, you have to be able to see it, right? If you see it, then you can do it, you can make it happen. Rituals and cyclical practices. I love the mayor of Houston that came on this week that talked about how they're still doing online services for his church, and he likes it because it keeps everybody safe, and he was able to really relate to that. But what that showed us, it was very ritualistic for him, and he didn't stop with some of the things that he was already doing. And he continued to keep those things going because that's important during a time like this. And then relational practices, having the dialogue. Or how about deep listening? And you can say, what's that? And I always tell people we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, but we're supposed to be listening twice as much as we talk, but it usually goes the other way around, right? So being able to do that deep listening, or when it's your time, being able to tell a story that's relatable. And if you haven't figured it out already, I'm a storyteller because I can have a story for everything. So those are really good things. So let's talk about resilience, because resilience is one of those things that we teach in terms of keeping trauma from setting in. And if you practice the resilience, then what you'll see is it'll help you process things through. So the term resilient is seen as the ability to bend without breaking, to return to an original shape or condition. Therefore, the term resilience with individuals is the ability to be bent by a traumatic experience, but not broken. More specifically, it is our ability to bounce back after encountering difficulties. So I think we can fairly say that we're in a difficult time, and now we have to find a way to bounce back. So there's a gentleman that wrote a book about resiliency, and he talked about how after interviewing Vietnam POWs and Special Force instructors, that the resilient individuals in all walks of life, and that there were 10 key factors. So they were 10 coping mechanisms that proved to be effective when dealing with stress and trauma, and we're going to talk about those. But not before we talk about neuroplasticity. It refers to the way that the nervous system responds to intrinsic, which is natural, and extrinsic, which is not natural, coming from the outside stimuli. What makes this a topic of discussion is that by repeatedly activating specific areas of your brain, we can strengthen those areas. So what this tells us is that by bouncing back is a choice. However, the choice is easier for some. So some people bounce back easier than others, but we have to make a choice that we will bounce back. Resilience is common because it can be enhanced through learning and training. So what are the resiliency factors? Realistic optimism. So it's good to maintain optimism, but you need it to be realistic. So don't set something way far out that you won't be able to do. Facing your fears. So if you have a fear, confront that fear. That's actually a resiliency factor. Number 3, rely on your own inner moral compass. So what somebody else does may not be something that you would do. So you have to be able to live by your own volition and know what feels right for you. Number 4, Religion and spirituality, they're two different things. One is practices and one is what you actually believe and who you connect with. But maintaining that to some degree, and I can tell you, I did a research on spirituality, and it means very different things for all people. But whatever it means to you, that's what's important. 5, seek and accept social supports, even now. And this looks like virtual support, but it's working in various arenas. So social support, we talked about it earlier, you're using Zoom or you're using a lot of different platforms to be able to connect with others, but you need to have that social support to be able to strengthen you so that you can move through some of the things that are very difficult in your life. Number 6, resilient role models. You have some people who have gone through some things, and I will share, my father will be 92 this year. He's gone through some things, right? Would I say he's resilient? Probably. He's a World War II vet. Are there some areas that he could offer me advice on? Yeah. When I was younger, did I want to hear them? Absolutely not. But as an adult, I will go to him and say, hey, Dad, what do you think? I have role models that aren't my father, right? That I believe have gone through some things. When I first came into the field, we call them mentors, but they're role models. And I had people that I really counted on that helped me be able to navigate what I was going through. There's some people who've gone through I have a neighbor up the street who went through polio. She had polio as a child. And she says, now there's a vaccine and kids don't get polio anymore. She said, but I got polio and it impacted my life. She said, I went through that and I kind of see this as the same thing. And she said it just in conversation, but it really made me think about how there are people who've gone through things that there was no vaccine for and how they were able to push through and still come out on the other side. Physical fitness, I talked about that. You want to train intensively to stay physically fit, mentally sharp, and emotionally strong. And this can be as simple as walking or riding a bike in your community. So people always think physical fitness means you got to go out and run a marathon. I'm not running a marathon. I can't run for that long. Give me a quick 5K, I'm good. Give me a 10K, I'm good. These days, as you get up in age, I just go for a walk and I'm okay with it, right? And so it's as simple as going for a walk. And that can do so much for your physical fitness. 8, brain fitness. Attend to your own health and well-being. Read a book, do some crossword puzzles, give yourself a break from the TV and work on strengthening your brain cells, right? So I talked about my 92-year-old dad. He does these crossword puzzles. He said, I'm keeping my mind sharp with my crossword puzzles. And all I'm thinking is, you do more crossword puzzles than anybody I've ever seen in my life. But okay, you just keep doing those crossword puzzles because it works for you, right? So number 9, cognitive and emotional flexibility. Find a way to accept what you cannot change. So, there's a serenity prayer. You accept the things that you change, the things that you can, accept the things that you can't, and then you got to move on. And we really want to be able to do that. You are probably not the person to fix everything, because if you fix everything, there wouldn't be anything left for somebody else to fix, and there'd be no way for them to make a contribution to this great earth that we live on, right? Number 10, meaning and purpose. Be an active problem solver. Look for meaning and opportunity in the midst of adversity. And I talked about that when I talked about how I wanted to find the good that was going on in the ozone layer and things like that, right? But the last thing that's not on here, don't forget to find humor in the darkness. And a lot of times people will lose their humor or their sense of humor. I have a son who tells me I have very English humor. He says, you'll say that's hilarious, but you're not laughing at all. I said, but it's funny. And he said, but you don't laugh. Most people laugh. You just say, that's really hilarious. But I do look for the humor in things. It's good for the soul. It makes you feel good. You ever have just a real good laugh and your stomach hurts and your side hurts? It's kind of a way of getting the physical fitness in there with the humor. And so it really works. But if we can incorporate these resiliency factors, they help us to be more resistant to what's going on around us. And they help with that neuroplasticity that we were talking about. So the we're getting down to the end, and I'm sure you all have some questions, but professional behavioral health care. For those who can't manage to work through all of this and it's really difficult to incorporate the resiliency factors, I want you to know that there's help. Behavioral health care is available, and I can tell you that we're doing just amazing work in the virtual format the same way we did when we were meeting face to face. And actually, I think a lot of people are more comfortable with it because you don't have to get in your car and you don't have to drive somewhere and you don't have to park. And your therapist is right there and you're comfortable in your own space. I've had people share stuff that they never shared with me before, right? Because the format works. So a lot of times we have in our mind that it needs to be a certain way. I just want to say, be open to what could become part of your new norm, right? And seeing a professional behavioral healthcare person via telehealth might be the very thing for you if you're struggling in some of the areas that we talked about today. If you have symptoms and they're causing any functional problems, reach out. If you have EAP, reach out to your EAP. If you have insurance, you can call the number on the back of your card. If you're not really sure and you need to talk to somebody, you can call 211 and then dial 1. If you're having suicidal thoughts or you're turning to alcohol and drugs, please reach out for help. And you can get help from those around you. Ask somebody for a referral and contact all the places where the help is coming from. So I know for those who work for the county, we've been given information on our EAP, and you want to look at your email because help is there. You have to be able to ask for it though. It's okay to not be okay as long as you are not giving up. And that's what's really, really important. So you don't have to be all right every single day. You don't. But just don't give up. Know that wherever you are in that moment, usually that moment will pass. And here's an example of telehealth, which helps you understand how it helps. So this is how it was traditionally done. I can tell you, I've worked in facilities where this is how telehealth worked. Now we just come into the home. You stay home, we stay home, and we connect. We connect through DoxyMe or other platforms that really help us to be able to connect with you. And it's been very flexible in the time that we're in. So to sum everything up for us today, we talked about loss, and loss doesn't actually have to be death, right? It is the loss of our life as normal. We talked about grief, which is our natural response to that loss and what that looks like for us. And then we talked about some ways to begin processing that. Don't forget, you remember the ocean when you start having those feelings, and just know that the big waves are gonna come, right? Just be ready for the big waves and process it through. When I was a kid and the big wave came, we just laughed and we stood back up and we waited for the next big wave. And that's what we have to do. We talked about vicarious trauma, which is the ultimate form of empathy. We're feeling for people, whether it's impacted us or not. COVID-19 is in our communities, and we do feel for people who are going through. And we're feeling for those that we're looking at on television. And it's okay for you to have those feelings. Remember the resiliency factors. Those will help you to begin to strengthen yourself. And we're talking about, how your body processes the vicarious trauma. It'll help you strengthen and be able to bounce back from what we're going through right now. So, and the last but not least, don't forget to ask for help because help is available for you. Are there any questions?
Yes, there is. So thank you, Dr. Hunter. I have a question from a fellow psychology professional. There are 3 questions, really. So it's kind of condensed. So some of us just began to adjust to our new normal of the quarantine. And then thinking about this context, how do we cope with the issues around those who are, 1, not respecting the virus and no longer distancing? 2, how do we manage coping with the stressors of life that were on hold, but now get added to this new degree of stress? And then 3, how do we cope while watching other non-COVID losses like the death of unarmed Black people at the hands of police around the nation during this time? So
So the first one, I would tell you that I struggle with the people who don't believe that COVID-19 is real. But the way that I deal with it is I continue to protect myself and my family. And I think there will always be naysayers, or there'll always be people who don't believe, or they think it's a conspiracy. They've always been with us, right? But the thing that we do in the midst of that is we continue to take care of ourselves. We continue to protect ourselves and our loved ones. So we can't control. Remember, we're back to the serenity prayer. We can't control what other people are doing. We can control what we're doing. And then some things we have to let go of. So I think that deals with the first question. The second one was dealing with the stressors of life, in the midst of this stressor. And I think it's true for everybody. At the beginning of all of this, we were like, COVID-19, what are we going to do? And we didn't have all of the answers, right? And we were dealing with it in a way that that we never had. I mean, how do you deal with something that you don't know how to deal with? And I think that became the reality of it all. And so I can tell you, for me, everything was COVID-19, and now all of the stuff that I had on my plate prior to COVID-19 is starting to hit. And I think what you do is don't look at it all at once. So if you're a healthcare professional, you understand this. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Don't take it and put it all on your plate all at once. Because if you put it all on your plate at once, it'll look overwhelming. Do one thing at a time. It's a good time to do a to-do list, or to see who you could allocate some things to. Not everybody that works with me has the same amount of work that I do. And I had to learn to give work to other people. And I had to learn to take work from other people and to function within that. In terms of the incident in Minneapolis, this is not new for us. It adds to our stressors, and it adds to us already dealing with a pandemic, and then us dealing with social issues that have been going on for a long time. And in those situations, I would say, wherever your voice can be effective, allow your voice to be effective. So I know someone who blogs, and she would very clearly blog about something like that, and she would make her impact in that way. However you can make an impact, whether it's you, and I worked in lobbying for years, and I can tell you this, your voice does make a difference. And as we come together as people, many voices make a big difference. And so to do something in a positive way, you may be the first person to say, let's get together and have a voice so that we can see laws changed and we can see things that come out of this that are good. You can be that catalyst. Remember, we talked about going out and doing stuff in the community. You don't have to sit back and be helpless. You actually can be part of the change that needs to happen.
Well, that was a stellar response. I was like, oh dear. That was awesome. I don't know if any folks have other questions, but I've seen some remarks about thank you. This was very helpful, very informational. Slide deck, I emailed you guys. If you want to have the slide deck, please email the mental health email address that you see on the flyer. And will there be further outreach? Yes, so I was responding to that as well. We're hoping to put all of our presentations up on the county website, so you guys can go back and replay them and follow up with other sources of information as well. Andrew, you've been sticking with me through the beginning to this point. Yes, I see you. It's great to see folks who have been with us throughout the whole entire. Hey, Nina, I see you too. Hey. It's great to see folks who have been with us throughout the series. We started the first week of May, and here we are now because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we wanted to make sure that we spoke to our community in a flexible way. So we decided to do this platform of Zoom, and a lot of folks have been joining in and sending lots of emails. I've been going back and forth with folks at the health department. So I really appreciate Wadler's online as well, Ms. Christina Wadler, Nina for responses, Dr. Hunter, Dr. Shaw was here too. Yes, I think Dr. Shaw is still here. So I wanted to say a big thank you to all of my colleagues in this space to help get responses, to our citizens. Um, Another question. Current political situation is tense and creating frictions in both the workplace and at home. How do employees manage their feelings in such a highly charged environment? Dr. Hunter?
I think that goes back to the last question that we just answered. You can sit back and do nothing, or you can be part of the change that needs to happen. I can tell you, I actually did do lobbying work on the Hill, so nationally. And a lot of times we think that we're one person, our voice doesn't make a difference, but I can't tell you the number of people that I encountered where their one voice became many voices and laws were actually changed and things were implemented because there was one voice that really wanted to make a difference. If you do nothing, then nothing happens.
Right.
If you want to see change, then I will tell you, as Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see. And if you become the change that you want to see and you don't sit back and you actually take steps to begin to move forward, and you can say, oh, they'll never hear me, but they will hear you. But if you do nothing, they absolutely won't hear you. If you take a step and you go out and you move forward and you allow your voice to be heard and you partner with other people of like mind who have the same passion that you do. And I know in our community, there are many people who are like-minded, who want to see change. They're ready for change. But it's the same people who say they're ready for change, and I don't want to make this political, that don't vote, that don't go and make a difference in their communities. And part of, Carrie Ann and I talked about this before we started. I work public health because I want to make a difference. And I believe that I can make a difference in the community that I live in. If all I wanted to do was be a clinician, I could do private practice or work somewhere like that. But I believe that what I know and what I have to offer can really make a difference in the community that I live in. Right. And what you have, whatever your gift is that you have, can make a difference in the community that you live and you work in. But if you don't do something with it, then it dies with you. And so I would encourage you to make a difference and to be the change that you want to see.
Yeah, thank you for that. I would have to agree. It often just starts with one voice that then triggers and amplifies many more. So never underestimate the power of your single voice. There are a lot of people out here that are just waiting for somebody else to say something before they, I want to say that too. So I think it's a power of one voice that kicks us off in a positive way. So,
Carrie Ann, I just wanted to also make a comment, if that's okay.
Sure.
I see we have just a few more minutes left. Just to piggyback off what Dr. Hunter just shared, I think, also working in a human services agency or arena, sometimes we can feel, some staff can feel as though they don't have a voice.
Yes.
And so sometimes that feeling of hopelessness can turn into complaints. Yes. Right? Spending a lot of time complaining about what isn't working or complaining about what has to be done or what isn't available, and not realizing that it should be more of a concerted effort to provide solutions. Mm-hmm. And just figuring out the way to communicate that is, I think, where some people may struggle, right? Because in this time, it's very easy to say, we don't have enough PPE. We don't have this. We don't have that. Those are things that everybody knows, right? I think everyone's aware that we don't have those things, right?
Yes.
So just kind of coming together collectively, sort of taking some of what Dr. Hunter said and working together to make change. You have to actually think through, okay, we know what the issue is. What are some of the solutions we can think about that sometimes leaders may not even be aware of? Right? Sometimes it takes an idea from an unlikely place or person to really turn something into a concerted action. And so I would encourage everyone on the call here, especially leaders or supervisors or anyone that works with direct service staff, who we're hearing these complaints from our staff. We're trying to take that energy and think through, brainstorming sessions like, okay, well, if you had your way, what would that look like, and how could we do it so that we can send that to our leaders in a show of support, right? And so I just think it's this was so timely for me as a leader of a division in an area that focuses on school-based and community-based supports, to really think about, okay, what are we hearing from the people we're connecting with the families and the students we're connecting with, and how do we send that up the chain in a way where it provides them with a scope of here's what we're experiencing, and here's some of our suggestions to go along with that. Right. And then we can sit back and say, look, we tried, right? We did our part, right? We had our voice, we voted, we raised the alarm, we communicated, and be able to feel as though we're not just complaining and that we don't feel heard. I think I just wanted to share that, because I know that's something our team is really experienced, and being on the front lines, doing home visits, delivering hotspots to families, to students in the school system, and not being able to reach certain families. And that's causing our staff anxiety, because we feel like if we can't put our eyes on you, or we can't hear from you and connect with you, what's happening, right?
Correct.
And so I think that I just wanted to share some of what we're dealing with in terms of our team, and how we're trying to break past barriers that direct service staff may feel are present, and even myself as a leader might feel as present.
Well, Nina, I'm sorry, Carrie Ann. Nina, I can tell you, I used to manage one of the oldest. I used to be the lead clinician at one of the oldest nonprofits in DC. And one of the things that I said, and we did direct services, when people came to me, my issue was, don't come to me with a problem if you haven't thought about the solution. And then what I did was, I gave them my word, and they knew that if I gave them my word, I meant it, that I would take that as far as I could, even if that was beyond our organization and onto the agencies that managed us or that funded us. And so the people who usually have the complaints also are the people who have the solutions, because they've thought it through and they know what doesn't work, and they've thought through what could work. Being able to take that and walk with that, especially in direct services, is part of how you motivate people and get them moving in the right direction. Because we can complain about it, and we will all complain, and a little bit of leaven's the whole lot, right? Or we can become solution focused, and we can take the strengths of everybody on your team. If you take their strengths and you take and you use that for the betterment, I think what you will see is a stronger team. And that helps them to be able to do what they need to do. And so my motto was always, if you walk into my office, and I had an open door policy, walk in with the solution. I'll hear what you have to say, and I'll hear your complaint, but I need you to come with that complaint with a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you both for that. I think it's important that we recognize that the system is holistic. It's not just leaders and a system and then residents. No, it's all of us that are lumped into this. And so it's important that we all say what's on our minds constructively, and have solutions brought with those comments as well. So thank you both for that dialogue. I see a lot more folks that have also joined in for our next session, which is going to dive into the social emotional well-being of our munchkins. I call little people, little children in our community munchkins. That's my favorite word for them. My mom used to call me her munchkin. So I know we have that presenter online. And so what I'm going to do is to switch over to that person, Paul Armstrong, and give him presentation. Thanks. Thank you everyone for joining. Those who are just joining us, for joining. Thanks for those who are staying with us. It's wonderful to see folks stay with us. And I'm going to make Paul that. All right. Dr. Hunter, thank you so much for your time today. I was grateful to have you as part of our presentation team as we pulled all of this together. So thank you so much for this. And if folks email me at the mental health email address that was on the flyer, or I put it in the chat earlier, I can get questions to Dr. Hunter if you have anything that you'd like her to follow up on. And also email me for her presentation deck as well. So we'll get that to you. Somebody made a comment and said, thank you. I was confused. I thought I missed a class. Oh, sorry. Sorry, our conversation just rolled over into Paul's time. Very sorry. Side note, I love this series that we have had all month, and I love Steel C's background. As somebody else online with a cool background. All right, thank you guys for joining. So for those who are just coming on board, this is the mental health series that we've been having all month here, hosting out of the County Executive's office. My name is Carrie Ann Peart, and I'm the Special Advisor for the Health, Human Services, and Education portfolio. It is a lot to say, and therefore even more to do. But as part of my portfolio, I got a bunch of my colleagues together to host this webinar series over the course of the month. And our next presenter, Paul Armstrong, who I see is online with us. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm going to give a quick intro to Paul, and then he is going to take us into the social emotional well-being of children, early childhood pieces. So
Yep.
Paul Armstrong is Early Childhood Mental Health Coordinator for Project WIN, which stands for Wise Intervention Now, at the Prince George's Child Resource Center. And he's been in that role since 2007. Project WIN is an early childhood behavioral intervention and mental health program funded by the Maryland State Department of Education to address social and emotional needs of children birth to 5 years of age who are in family childcare and childcare centers or informal childcare settings in the county. So Paul is with us today, and welcome, welcome. Paul, I believe you can go ahead and share your screen for your presentation.
Okay.
And we can rock and roll.
Okay. I'm
As
going
I
to give this
remind-
my best shot.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for that nice introduction and all the work about me. When I'm in my classroom, I usually go just by Mr. Paul after and that's the way a lot of people do know me when I go to the child care programs all around Prince George's County, helping young children who have challenging behaviors. And just thank you so very much. Thank you also to Dr. Hunter for I just caught the tail end of what seemed like a wonderful, serious
Yes, it was great.
Conversation. We're going to take a little bit of a pivot here. I just want to say that it's this, not that what I'm going to be talking about isn't serious and important, but we're going to be getting into talking about, like, well, you call them munchkins, but about young children and some simple strategies and things like that we can do with them, ways to talk to them, talk a little bit about the crisis. And then at the end, I have a little bit of a quiz, which I think was going to be a whole lot of fun for everybody, that, just can give you some hints and ideas. And it might be just sort of like a real fun way to end this whole early childhood mental health webinar series and things like that. I have a bunch of my colleagues here with me and family members. So let's try to share that screen and see how it goes.
Yeah, go ahead and
Screen.
Yep.
Here's my presentation. And let's turn it on.
There we go.
Is it there? Are we doing it?
Yes, sir. You are rocking and rolling.
Rocking and rolling. And I'm going to minimize a little bit of this stuff here so I can see you, and then we'll get going. All right. I'm Paul. First off, I want to thank our Prince George's County Executive, Angela Also Brooks. My contact here, Carrie Ann, thank you. You've been very supportive. Also, my co-workers and family at the Child Resource Center. I work in a wonderfully supportive environment that enabled me to put this together today for all of you. And behind the scenes, they're all very helpful to me, and I want you to know that they're out there. So I'm very proud to close out this month, the mental series webinars, and let's make it fun. Here we go. I'm from the Prince George's Child Resource Center. This is the Early Childhood and Social Emotional Health webinar from the Prince George's Child Resource Center. These are the slides I'm supposed to show, just to be, we're part of the Maryland Child Care Resource Network. We're a member of the Maryland Child Care Resource Network with funding provided by the Maryland State Department of Education through the Maryland Family Network. And I wanted to make sure that we did have our contact information. We are a resource center. So I put up here just a couple of bits of information. For example, I want you to know that you can have my email address, which is barmstrong@pgcrc.org. Also, we do offer trainings, typically for child care providers, but we're open to other people as well too. because we have good information about early childhood education and working with young children, and especially nowadays that people may be working with their young children at home until we can get back to a more sense of normalcy. We also have our website here where we're constantly updating with information in our community. And of course, my phone just went off. Welcome to the world of webinars. So, agenda. I just want to go over a little bit about what we're going to be doing here today. First off, we're going to be talking about social and emotional health. And we're going to really dive into the importance of positive relationships. Positive relationships are so important for our young children, but they're important for all of us. And we're going to go over some just very, very simple ways. The stuff I'm going to give you is not complicated, but simple ways to build resilience and build positive relationships with our young children. And actually, if you take a look at these, some of these strategies, ideas can be even extended to even older children and family members as well. We're going to be talking about positive, supportive language, how to twist some of the things we may say, especially now that we may be at home and under stress, to just have more positive outcomes when we're trying to talk to our family members, our children, and things like that. We're going to go over a couple of tips about talking to young children about COVID-19 and social distancing. It's real important that we go over these type of things and make sure that it's in a way that they can understand. A lot of times we make a lot of assumptions that very, very young children understand more than they do. So we've got to keep it in a very simple way and make sure that they understand it so they can relate it to the new world that they're seeing, feeling, and getting from us. And then we're going to end with something fun, because it's always good to have fun. And when you're working with your little ones, they need to have a fun. Even we as adults need to have fun. So we have a fun family quiz with strategies adapted from Bruce Feiler. He's an author of something called The Secret to Happy Families, which might be just a fun way for us to be looking at the screen, making some guesses, and being a little bit interactive and stuff like that. So, stuff like that's one of my I just want to give you the source of a lot of the information I'm about to give you. It comes from the Maryland Cephal Pyramid Model. And there's a whole website through the University of Maryland School of Social Work and the Maryland State Department of Education. And it's based on this particular model. It's called the Pyramid Model. And the Pyramid Model is designed to help organize a variety of evidence-based approaches and activities focused on young children's healthy, social, and emotional development. The key words there is evidence-based approaches. One of the things that we've actually found is that working with young children, it's important that we be very conscious of their social skills and their emotional skills. Not that academics aren't important and things like that, but actually how to get along, how to share, and how to do those type of things is vital for our young children. And today I'm going to be focusing sort of on the bottom of the pyramid, which is nurturing and responsive relationships, which is just one level up from effective workforce, and be talking about how to build positive relationships with our children, because that will build resilience. So what are some social emotional skills? What will we be building when we work with our children? What are some of the things that these children need? And as they gain these skills, what it will enable young children to do is actually do better, I'll argue, not only in school, but in our family life and also throughout all of life. So important skills children need to develop during early childhood. These include simple things like having confidence. Think about this. If you're confident in yourself, you're going to be able to accomplish more things. You'll be less afraid to try things that are difficult. You will work harder at things. Confidence is so important. The capacity to develop good relationships with peers and adults. Relationships. You're going to see a quote here about how important I think relationships are from Max Lucado in a screen that's coming up. But I think having good relationships with your peers, with adults, is one of the most vital things in life. Concentration and persistence on challenging tasks. This is a skill that works out for school, it works out for home, it works out for everything. The ability to effectively communicate emotions. One of the things that you can do, which is not all in my presentation, but just make sure you're asking children in this time and age how they're feeling, and use lots of emotional words, because the more emotional words that we're using with young children, we're going to be increasing their emotional vocabulary. And that is actually good for not only physical health, but also mental health as well. And then the ability to listen to instructions and be attentive, and the ability to solve social problems. And it all starts with relationships. Children learn what they live. I love this particular quote poem. I've shared it at all my classes because I think this is so true. So I'm just going to read it to you because it really demonstrates about what the atmosphere, what we can do for children. So it says, children learn what they live. If children live with hostility, they learn to fight. If children live with ridicule, they learn to be shy. If children live with tolerance, they learn to be patient. If children live with encouragement, they learn confidence. If children live with praise, they learn to appreciate. If children live with fairness, they learn justice. If children live with security, they learn faith. If children live with approval, they learn to like themselves. And if children live with acceptance and friendship, they learn to find love in the world. All right. That gets me every time I read it, right in my heart. So let's get into the importance of positive relationships. Positive relationships with children matter. Building positive relationship with young children is essential and a foundational component of good parent and teaching. Positive relationships build children's resiliency. And as we move through my presentation here today, you're going to see how by giving children interactions, deposits through positive relationships, it actually helps the child maintain optimism, confidence, and a bunch of those social emotional skills that I showed you in the previous slide. How do relationships matter? This is from a famous Christian writer. His name is Max Lucado. And he talks about relationships in this context. And this is the way I like to look at relationships. Relationships matter most in life. As when you are in the final days of your life, what will you want? Will you hug that college degree in the walnut frame? Will you ask to be carried to the garage so you can sit in your car? Will you find comfort in rereading in your financial statement? Of course not. What will matter then will be people. If relationships will matter most then, shouldn't they matter most now? Relationships are the foundation of everything we do. So positive relationships. Children grow and thrive in the context of close and dependable relationships that provide love and nurturance, security, and responsive interactions. This actually just makes sense. If you think about you going back in your life, you know, when you learn well, or for example, if you've ever had a teacher, like, for example, I've had a teacher in my life who actually, I could tell, loved me, cared about me. And because they loved and cared about me, I worked harder with them and they were supportive of me. So it says here, children grow and thrive in the context of close and dependable relationships. These are the relationships that matter. Same thing with your parents. Think about this. Relationships matter this much, that when you have someone that cares about you, you're more willing to do things for them. You're more willing to try to accomplish things. If you in your life have had a relationship with somebody that is not so good, realize that's not the person you're going to be calling, you know, to give you a ride to the airport, but it's someone that you really love and trust and loves you back. It's going to be that person that you call when you need something like that, you know, ride to the airport at 5 a.m. whenever we get back to that. So anyway, love, nurturance, security, and responsive interactions. We do need to be responsive with our young children. Positive adult-child relationships are built on trust, understanding, and caring, and will foster children's cooperation and motivation and increase their positive outcomes in school. So when we give good positive relationships with children and we have those positive relationships, their schoolwork will do better. The way they get along with people in school will do better. So that's why it's so important. Simply, children learn the best and behave better in the context of positive relationships. Building relationships. So it helps each child feel accepted. Children want to feel accepted, to be part of groups, to things like that. It assists children in learning to communicate and get along with others. It encourages feelings of empathy and mutual respect among children and adults. and it provides a supportive environment in which children can learn and practice appropriate and acceptable behaviors as individuals and as a group. So why is building relationships so important? The relationships that we build with children and families are at the foundation of everything we do. It's important to build these relationships early on, right from when they're born, rather than waiting until there is a problem. Children learn and develop in the context of relationships that are responsive, consistent, and nurturing. Why is it important? Children with the most challenging behaviors, and these can be exhibited nowadays in our homes, in our classrooms, and things like that, especially need these relationships. Yet it's their behaviors that often prevent them from benefiting from these relationships. What I want to say about this is, think about it. If your child's acting up, or your child is doing things and challenging you, being defiant and things like that, that child needs you more than ever during those periods of times. And yet, when a child is acting up, that's the easiest time it is for us to push away. So challenging behaviors naturally make us push away. So we need to find a way to make sure that we're actually connecting to those children when they are having challenging behaviors, and also when they're not having those challenging behaviors. Because ultimately, we want to have those connections with that child so that we can help them manage those challenging behaviors. Adults' time and attention are very important to children. And we need to be sure that we are giving them that time and attention at times other than when they are engaging in challenging behavior. It's as simple as this. If a child's sitting there at home in a child care program and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's so easy to ignore that good behavior. However, a child at home, in a center, in a family child care home, picks up a block, chucks it across the room, boom, we're there. All of a sudden, we're giving them that attention. It's important that we try to find ways to give children time and attention when they are doing the good things, when they are behaving well. It doesn't always mean that you always have to be constantly praising them. Sometimes it's just a matter of being there and seeing that and noticing things. It's not always even about the praise, because sometimes we get caught up in all this kind of praise. You're doing a great job. You're doing stuff like that. It sometimes can be just as simple as being there, seeing they're doing something and saying, there's this wonderful word that I learned from my friend Kathy Kaufman. I notice that you're drawing a picture, and all of a sudden they see that we're actually interested in what they're doing, and that makes them feel good, and they perceive it as praise. And now all of a sudden we're giving them attention and time when they're doing something that we want them to be doing, and it's positive. How to build positive relationships continued. A metaphor for building positive relationships that may be particularly helpful is that of a piggy bank. Cephal, the pyramid model, has this piggy bank metaphor. And basically it's this: whenever parents, teachers, and caregivers engage in strategies to build positive relationships, it's as if they are making a deposit in the child's relationship piggy bank. And we need to make sure we're filling that piggy bank, filling it up so much, because you know what? As a parent, as a teacher, as anybody, a relative, that we do need to occasionally make withdrawals from that child. We occasionally have to ask our children to do their homework, or come to, or stop doing something. When we make those withdrawals from that piggy bank, we better make sure that we have put enough chips in that, these strategies, these engagements with the child in that piggy bank, so that we're able to make that withdrawal. Conversely, when adults make demands, and we have to nag, criticize children, it's as if we are making a withdrawal. So the whole idea here is we want a child's piggy bank to be full. And it's not hard to fill it up. It's actually quite easy. Some of these things are so easy, so common sense. It's just a matter of thinking about them. So let's make deposits. It's easy. We all know how to do it. There's they've come up with this ratio of 5 to 1. So we need to make 5 deposits for every withdrawal. So look, we're going to have to make our withdrawals, but let's make sure we're filling that piggy bank up with our deposits. So what are these deposits? Here's our piggy bank. It's nothing too big. It's things like playing with the child, smiles, hugs, showing interest, time and attention, praise, effort, having empathy with the child. When a child's upset, just telling them, not always coming up with a solution, but just saying, I see that you're angry. I see that you're upset. And when we even make a demand of them, where we need them to do something, maybe they're at home or they're in a childcare program and we need them to clean up, it's making sure that we also, even at that time, give them a deposit before we make that withdrawal. And so when we say it's time to clean up, notice that they're not cleaning up. Come on. They don't want to clean up. Maybe they're pretending not to hear you or something like that. It's as simple as saying something like, wow, you're really into building with those blocks. You're really into drawing. You're really into playing with those Legos. Wow, it must be really hard to stop. Now I've basically told the child that I've recognized their feelings. I have the child there. They see that they actually understand that they're actually enjoying what they're doing. However, then we get to the but. It's time to clean up. But I've even made a deposit and I've even recognized the child's feelings, which helps their emotional skills so that they even feel that they're heard, because all behavior ultimately is communication. And when the child doesn't clean up, it's not that always that the child is just being straight disobedient or something like that. They're actually telling us something like, I really like what I'm doing. And you just told me to clean up and I still wanted to finish my castle. I still wanted to make my airplane. I still wanted to do something. And their behavior is showing it sometimes when they don't even have the words. So we need to acknowledge it. Not that it isn't time to clean up, and it may be, but just acknowledge what they are showing us. So simple ways to make deposits. Oh, lots and lots of deposits. Follow a child's lead during play. I would even add this. It's one of the things I always say about child care providers, but I guess this goes for a little bit of everybody. But one of the signs of a good child care provider is that they have a bad back and bad knees. Why? Because you know what? They're getting down on the child's level. It's different when you're standing up and you're talking down to a child and giving commands. One of the techniques I even use when I do observations and I'm looking at children and children with challenging behaviors is that my knees are going out, but I like to get down on the child's level. And one of the things that happens when you're down on the child's level, first off, you can see their play. And secondarily, their interaction with you changes. It's no longer, hey, I'm telling you. It's, hey, I'm down here with you. And now I'm interested in what you're doing. And when you're at that level, another technique to make a deposit is to start even, looking at what they're playing with, asking questions, adding things. Oh, you're building with the Legos. You can play with the Legos too. Oh, look, what color Legos? And then you could even get into some learning things, because while they're playing with the Legos, you could start talking about simple things like, hey, what color Legos are you choosing? Wow, how big is that? Is yours bigger than mine? Or is that taller than this one? And all of a sudden you're now even throwing in, while you're basically building a relationship with the child, some of the academic skills that young children need. Have a conversation over meals. The segue to that is simply this. There's been a lot of research that shows that families who sit down and have meals together on a regular basis and have conversations of, together, basically the children that do that more often than not do better in schools. It's not a guarantee of that, but they tend to do better at schools. They engage in less risky behavior. It also creates a time for children and families to communicate. If you ever take a look at Head Start best practices, they realize this. And part of Head Start best practices, if you're ever in a Head Start program, is that when it's mealtime, the teachers don't serve the meals and just stand above the children and monitor. They sit with the children at their tables so that they can talk and have conversations and find out about what's going on in the children's lives. And think about this, even in our lives, this is one of the things that we do. We get together with our families, we get together with our friends, and we have conversations over meals. It's a great way to nurture positive relationships and make deposits. Listen to a child's ideas and stories and be an appreciative audience. They're sitting there, I went to grandma's house this weekend. Wow, grandma's house, what did you do? Oh, grandma took me to Chuck E. Cheese. Wow, that's great. And it was my birthday, even though the birthday was 3 weeks ago. That's fine. Wow, your grandma must really love you. Or any kind of story that they come up with. Listen to what they're telling you. Show interest. It builds. It's a way to make a deposit. Excuse me. I have my lemonade here now. Positive notes. And when it comes to positive notes, you need to make this age appropriate. So for example, a positive note for a 3-year-old could be as simple as a Post-it note with a smiling face that you put on there and say, I love you. A small, simple note like that. As the children get older, the notes can increase as far as, you know, what you want to praise them for or things like that. But just even a little note, for example, when a child gets a little bit older and is going to maybe their preschool, or maybe they're going to school or something like that, in a lunch pail or something like that, or in their backpack, you just slip in a note. Mom loves you. I love you very much. I think you're going to have a great day. Just those small little things. You're making deposits when you're not even there. Provide praise and encouragement. This is so simple and it's so easy, and we all know that we need to do this. But here's one of the keys that I want to get into. Acknowledge a child's effort. Praise effort, not product. Also, it's important that we praise effort and not intelligence. We all want to tell everyone that our child is bright or smart, and we may even say that to, oh, look, you're so smart. But there is some fascinating research from Carol Dweck from Stanford. It's called Praise and Mindsets. And she's done, excuse me, tons and tons of research on, excuse me, on how we praise children. She originally started with 5th graders, but she's expanded her research to go all the way down to preschool years, even infancy, all the way up to college years. And the difference between praising effort or praising intelligence or product is very, very clear. When we praise product or just the answer, children like that. And then it gives them a particular feeling. Oh, you like me because I'm smart. You like me because I was able to accomplish this. But when we praise effort, it actually creates a different feeling for young children all the way up to adulthood. And praising effort is just simply changing some small, simple things. Wow, look at you. I'll use a 3-year-old. You're painting a picture. It's not that look, I'm not saying it's wrong to say it's a beautiful picture, but you can say, wow, you worked really hard on that. Tell me about some of the colors you chose. Wow, I see that you use lots of lines over here. And then sometimes, because it's a 3-year-old, it's best to ask them what it is, because sometimes they're telling, you think it's a tree and then they tell you it's an airplane. So just be cool about that. But the difference between praising effort compared to product, when she was doing her studies, was amazing. Children that are praised for their effort work harder. Also, children that are praised for their effort try to do difficult things. Children that are praised for their effort are not afraid to challenge themselves. And this goes through school years, all the way up to college, all the way up probably to us even as adults. But when you just praise, intelligence and product, all of a sudden, if a child's having a hard time, look, they get to a problem, whatever the problem may be. It could be a social problem, a sharing problem. It could be a math problem. And all of a sudden they realize they can't get the right answer. Well, if we've been praising them for their intelligence, now they all of a sudden become afraid. It's like, for example, a worksheet, and all of a sudden they realize they got it wrong. Now they're afraid because they got it wrong. Because now we're going to look at them and say, oh, you got that wrong, instead of, wow, you chose to do it that way. Nice effort. Let's see what else we can figure out. And now they're no longer afraid to actually make mistakes, try things, and eventually overcome something that may be incorrect. Effort is very important. Please do look up Carol Dweck, Praise and Mindsets. There's a fascinating video, which I chose not to share today because sometimes I'm a little bit worried about some of the interconnectivity. But if you even type into any search engine, Carol Dweck, Praise and Mindsets, there's a lot of great videos out there about her research as well as books. All right, we're about halfway through. We're going to continue with some deposits, and then we're going to be moving on to talking a little bit about how to talk with children. Some simple ways to make deposits. Again, share information about yourself and find something in common with the child. I would actually argue with you, this is actually a great adult skill. Finding something in common with somebody all of a sudden helps to make connections. So, for example, when you see a child and their interest in stuff, oh, you see them that they're playing with trucks or a car, and you could start talking about, maybe you like cars, or they're drawing flowers. You can say, oh, I like flowers too. Just find things that are in common that creates connection between you and the child. Post children's work on their fridge or in their room. When it comes to preschools, in the classroom. I also suggest when you post children's work, make sure you put it at their level. If you put it up real high, that's okay. That's more for you. But at their level, that's where they can see it. And you can say, oh, look, I'm posting it here so that you can see it and I can see it. Give compliments liberally. Find out what a child's favorite book is and read it. I'll tell you right now, if you want me to like you, I can tell you the book that I like the best. And some people know this who know me through the Resource Center. My favorite children's book is Corduroy by Don Johnson. I think that, or Freeman, Don Freeman, sorry, Don Freeman, Don Johnson. That's my Annie Vice. Don Freeman. And I love that book. It speaks to me. Why? Because when I was growing up and I was a young child, my mom used to take me downtown to the department stores, and we would catch the bus. We would get off and we'd walk through those department stores, and I would see all the things that are in that book, Corduroy. So I can relate. Even though the protagonist, the little girl, is a girl, it didn't matter to me. I understood how much she loved the bear. I understood the fear that the bear had. I understood the security guard. I understood. It was my favorite book. You need to find what your child's favorite book, what connects with your child, be it in the classroom, be at home. Read it, enjoy it, see why they connect with it. It's a great way to build relationships and make deposits. Play a game with a child. And in this time, please, please play outside with a child. I'll even tell you right now, today it's raining. People don't take their children outside. Why? Because it's wet. There's a lot to learn out there even today. If I was here and I had a child with me, I would be outside today with something that's been invented a long, long time ago. It's called a raincoat and it's called an umbrella. And I'm outside there, and you know what we're going to discover? Things like worms that have come up out of the ground. We're going to see a puddle and we can splash in it. And by the way, it's pretty warm outside right now. So we're not going to get cold or anything like that. And we can even talk about the rain. Wow, look, the rain is going down the gutter. Where does that go? There's a whole world out there, and they can even enjoy the rain. Water's good. Please get your children outside. Even on rainy days, children need to be outside. Children need to play. The recommendations for childcare programs is at bare minimum, the recommendations are what, 60 minutes a day, 2 times 3? I would say that's the minimum. We should be getting them out even more than that. It's good for their health. It's good for their mental health. Give hugs, high fives, and thumbs up for accomplishing tasks. Look, every time I see a young child, they love a good high five, fist bump. They got it all down pat, and it all of a sudden makes them feel good. And you can see that they're reaching for it. As soon as you give one, the next one wants one too. It's good. Do something as simple as hold a child's hand. Tell a child after a bad day, look, I want to tell you, everyone here, it's okay to be human. I have had bad days, in particular right now. I've had anxiety at times. I have had some days that are better than not. And that's even with my normal life. And sometimes I may be on edge for whatever reason. It could be work related. It could be relationship related. And maybe you recognize that by the end of the day, you've been snapping. That's okay. I'm not saying it's all right to be human. But you know what? To reset this, and instead of focusing that, oh, we had a terrible day. What a terrible day. I'm sorry we had a bad day today. I know tomorrow is going to be better. It just sets not only you, but your child up to look forward. Because whatever happened earlier in the day, let's just say the child was having a bad day for whatever reason. We can harp on what they did, but we can instead look forward to the future and say, you know what, tomorrow's going to be better. I love you. Boy, we had a bad day. That was really tough. But tomorrow we're going to play. We're going to learn some things, and we're going to just have a better day. And it gives them something to look forward to. This is my favorite. Tell a child how much he or she was missed. If they went over to grandma's house, if they didn't come into your child care program, let the child know. The joke I tell in class is this. In particular, when you have a challenging child in a classroom, and the child, for example, misses a day, and you had a pretty good day because that child wasn't there because, you know, he may stress your nerves or she may stress your nerves. I always say, don't lie. Just find a little bit of a positive way to say it. And it's like, the way I say it is like, okay, I shouldn't pick on Johnny, but I guess I will. I'm going to pick on Johnny. Johnny was absent yesterday, so now he's back today. Or maybe, and look, this could even apply even at home. Johnny went to grandma's for the weekend and had a wonderful, wonderful weekend while Johnny was away. You just were able to relax. This is what you could say and still be positive and still be truthful. Oh, Johnny, I noticed you weren't here all weekend, or I noticed you didn't come into the classroom yesterday. You wouldn't believe the day we had without you. It's still true. And you're not lying. And you can even say, we did this and did that. If you're at home, you could say, oh, I was able to relax some and do those things, but I missed you. So let your child know they are loved and you will keep them safe. And then in today's day and age, that's probably one of the most important things we can do. Now, here's the quick one about self-care. During this time of a global pandemic where we are asked to shelter in place for long periods of time, things can be particularly stressful. I should never put that word in a presentation. I always stumble over it. Just like the instructions on an airplane, make sure you are taking care of yourself so that you could take care of the children. In an airplane, the instruction's quite simple. First off, you know, if the masks come, the flight instructors, the flight attendants, they tell you, make sure you put the mask over yourself first, then care for your child. You need to make sure that you're there, that you're well taken care of, so you can manage your child. Because if you do it the opposite, then you won't be there for your child. So for us, we need to take breaks. The new thing is mindfulness. Practice mindfulness. Take some deep breaths. Find some time to just be calm and be aware of yourself and your feelings. Take some time for yourself. Now, let's look at some ways to change language to be supportive of children. This person, Dr. Vanessa Lapointe, she has this big handout. I sort of manipulated to put it into the presentation today, has some better ways to say things that are supportive and help us bring a positive mindset. These are common, tough situations we've all experienced. These are things we all say. I say, you know, like I always, one of the comments I think I try to stress to teachers, to families, is use positive words. And look, I'm going to tell you, like, you know, you'll hear in a classroom, for example, you need to use your walking feet. Walking feet. Yeah, that's the positive way. But don't kid yourself. Even I don't run or do not do something. But there are some better ways to say things when we come across these difficult situations, which I know are happening in our homes, which also happen in our child care programs, which happen all the time. So let's take a look at what Dr. Vanessa Lapointe came up with. Just some really smart ways to say things. Some simple phrase ideas for diffusing tough situations with your child. What were you thinking? Instead say, I'm going to help you with this. Now we're being supportive. How many times do I have to tell you? Instead say, I'm going to do blank so that it will be easier for you. Again, these are all about being supportive and turning something negative into a positive. Stop it. You are embarrassing me. Every parent has said that. Let's go to a quiet place and get this sorted out. If you don't stop that, no Xbox for a week. And that's straight to our punishment. Instead say, I can see this is tricky for you. We're going to solve this later. Let's get a drink of water. That particular comment right there goes straight into learning how to problem solve a problem, and even leads you as a teacher or a parent into a problem solving mode instead of a punishment mode. Because when you just remove something, the child doesn't learn how to deal with the situation. But by saying, we're going to solve this later, you're actually pushing yourself and the child into what can we do that will solve this problem. Go to your room. Instead say, come here, I've got you. But occasionally you need to go to their room. Trust me on that one. No stars on the star chart for you. Let's figure out a better way for next time. And then finally, stop that right now. If you need to get your mat out, then go ahead. It's okay. I've got you. And that's all about keeping a child safe and understanding that, you know what, they can be angry and upset. Sometimes they can't communicate to you very well, and so they do use their emotions. The classic silent eye roll and frustrated sigh. Instead, kind eyes and a compassionate hair tussle, which we all can do much better now since we haven't, or at least I have not, been to the barber in 3 months. After this presentation, I'm going to get a hacker job. So anyway, you are impossible. We will get this figured out. I can handle all of you. It's all good. And then I love that. I got you. Now some quick questions. I see that I have 15 minutes. I'm going to go over a couple of quick things, and then we're going to get to our fun survey. I don't know if we're going to, I know that people are putting things in the chat box and stuff like that, but just looking at how my presentation's timing out, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be efficient with everybody's time and go up probably right to the end, but I won't be trying to keep you too much longer. And I know some people have been here for a very long time. So maybe this has been covered in lots of different ways. I've seen and things like that, but talking about COVID-19 with children, we need to, especially, and this is where I want to really focus on our youngest children. Okay, again, I'm going to quote Carrie Ann, our little ones. So it's tough to talk to children about what is going on in the world right now. It's tough for even us to talk about. Here are some very easy conversation strategies. We need to make this crisis understandable for children. Keep it simple. This crisis, in a lot of ways, is even hard for even us as adults to understand. Take a look. Still don't understand that there's a virus out there. I mean, I even heard that during the previous presentation. It's easy to understand a snowstorm. You can see the snowstorm. It's easy to understand a hurricane's coming, and then you see the hurricane come. And there's also a beginning and a definite end. This is harder. So we need to keep it simple with them so that they understand it in ways that they can understand it. It's hard for us. It's certainly hard for them. Here are some scripts that may be helpful. First, share age-appropriate facts and corrected misinformation. Again, keep it simple. And here's some quotes. And I got this from this wonderful doctor from PBS. You know what it's like to have a cold or the flu? And young children know that when you sneeze and do those types of things. How sometimes you get a cough or have a fever? This is kind of like that. Most people who catch this sickness stay home, rest, and get all better. And we have wonderful doctors and nurses who can help people when they need it. And again, young children understand going to the doctor, taking medicine, things like that. Second, reassure them that they are safe, which is the most important message kids can hear from you. Children take their emotional cues from your tone. You don't need to worry. Right now, lots of amazing grown-ups are working hard to keep people healthy. Notice the working hard, emphasizing effort. Luckily, we already know a lot about how to keep you healthy. And then let's get to what they simply can do. Third, emphasize simple things your family can do to be germ busters for all types of germs that are out there. And by the way, we've already known about good hand washing practices and things like that in childcare programs or homes. Wash your hands, we've heard it. Now we just really need to do it a little bit more. But there's actually something comforting in washing your hands, and it can even be soothing. As Harvard's Dr. Richard Weisbord once shared, kids and adults alike are more distressed when we feel helpless and passive, and more comfortable when we are taking action, doing something. The hygiene routines, for example, washing hands, that slow the spread of the COVID-19 are the same habits that help keep us healthy all year round. So emphasizing those simple things. And look, we're doing our part. Social distancing. It may help to explain social distancing like this, and this is very hard for young children. Germs like to travel from person to person. Have you ever noticed how kids in your class sometimes get sick at the same time? If lots of people stay home for a while, it will be hard for the coronavirus germs to travel to new people. And that's good news for doctors and nurses who are helping people who get sick. After this explanation, a few hours later, an 8-year-old was heard re-explain it this way to her kindergarten brother. This sickness isn't a big deal for you or me, but we need to be germ busters so we can protect other people, like grandma and grandpa. This is how we help. And now we're coming to the home stretch. This is our fun family quiz, Secrets for a Happy Family, and it's from a guy, again, his name is Bruce Feiler, and he wrote a book. So we're going to end with a fun quiz about families that might give us some strategies to use at home during these stressful times. And I'll try to give you a little comment after each answer. I'm going to go a little bit rapidly, but let's just take a look at this. And I hope this is sort of fun for you. And don't worry, you're not turning this in. You're not getting scored. It's just, let's take a look at this stuff and see what some of the common answers are. And this is all based on his research and his book, and I will give you some of the sources and stuff. And sometimes the sources are even implied in the question. So as we get to this, okay, when a team of psychologists, so they had a whole bunch of psychologists, measured children's resilience, they found that kids who blank were best able to handle stress. Ate the same breakfast every day, knew the most about their family's history, played team sports, attended regular religious services, knew the most about their family history. I did not answer that myself that way, and here's the answer. The more children know about their family's history, the stronger their sense of control over their lives and the higher their self-esteem. The reason, these children have a strong sense of intergenerational self. They understand that they belong to something bigger than themselves, and that families naturally experience both highs and lows. Children are expected to learn how many new words it's covered up, per year during grades 3 through 12. 500, 1,500, 3,000. 3,000. It may sound daunting, but you can help by teaching kids one new word every day. 3 simple games are effective at building vocabulary. First, throw out a word like bird or white and have everyone list as many related words as possible. Second, introduce a prefix or suffix and see how many words can be created from it. Third, open a newspaper or magazine. Newspaper, what's that? Magazine, and ask the kids to find the word they don't know. Then look up the definitions and discuss. And lastly, I'll say, this is something that I emphasize for young children, even in your home. Putting little labels by things helps children's vocabulary because they see the words associated with things. And be very purposeful in the words you use when you talk to children. For example, instead of saying, pass me that, use the word, pass me the spatula, pass me the mixing bowl. Just using more words instead of pronouns or, that, this, give me that. That's not actually increasing vocabulary. Using the real words, and it's such a small little thing, can be helpful. True or false? When giving children an allowance, parents should force them to divide their money into equal piles for spending, saving, and giving away. True or false? And my dad did this with me. So, and this is a very common thing. And here's the answer. False. An allowance gives kids a chance to practice something they won't learn in school. Money management. Dividing allowance money into different pots is a popular tactic, but you shouldn't force it on a child. Instead, let him or her decide how to spend the cash. As one of Warren Buffett's bankers said, it's better to make a mistake with a $6 allowance than a $60,000 salary or an inheritance. 4, what do surveys show that children want most from their parents? To spend more time with them, for the parents to be less tired and stressed, a bigger allowance. I vote for a bigger allowance. For the parents to be less tired and stressed. Remember my slide, you need to take care of yourself. An effective way to cut down on stress is to hold a weekly meeting to review how your family is functioning. Sit together with everyone and pose 3 questions. What worked well in our family last week? What didn't work well? And what can we work on now? The following week, adjust and try again. Oh, I just did the other one real fast. Sorry about that. Missed that. Eating dinner together as a family is shown to benefit children, but at least 1/3 of Americans rarely do so. Which of these alternates can offer the same benefits? Eating breakfast together, having a bedtime snack as a family, scheduling even a once-a-week Sunday supper. All of the above. And that was earlier in my presentation. And he basically says the same thing here. Children who eat dinner with their families do better in school and are less likely to drink, smoke, do drugs, or develop eating disorders. Yet one study found Americans rank 23rd out of 25 countries when it comes to family meals. Still, research shows that you can reap most of the same benefits by gathering at other times, like at breakfast, even if it's just once a week. To encourage conversation and draw your family closer, arrange your seating in a U-shaped, circle, or L-shape. Circle. To encourage conversation and draw your family closer, arrange your living room in a circle. A study of hospital patients in Saskatchewan, Canada, found that subjects were friendlier to one another when they seated face to face. The ideal distance is about 5 feet away, the same vantage from which Rembrandt and Leonardo da Vinci painted portraits. At that distance, the eye can comfortably take in the torso, hands, and face. The most common time of day for family fights is dinner time. Psychologists in Chicago studied interactions between moms, dads, and kids and found that the most highly charged time was from 6 to 8 p.m. when parents are returning from work and everybody is hungry. To reduce fighting, hold off on difficult topics until everyone's looked through the mail, eaten, and changed clothes. When it comes to discipline, this is a stickler. Who should pick the punishments? Parents or the children, the kids? The kids. When kids have a role in picking their own punishments, it can give them a greater sense of ownership over their behavior and may increase the likelihood they'll follow through on changing it, said Carol Dweck, remember Praise and Mindsets, a professor of psychology at Stanford University. The worst word you could say in a fight with a spouse is, my family is probably your mother, but you, pronouns are the canaries in the coal mine of conflict. James Pennebaker, PhD, chair of the psychology department at the University of Texas at Austin, citing studies of married couples, says that using a lot of first-person pronouns, I or we, is a sign of a healthy relationship. Using you, as in you always say that, or you never do this, indicates poor problem solving. I do this, I gotta break that. If you're having an argument with your partner or teenager, you can help reduce feelings of resentment if you lie down and stretch out, sit up with good posture, lean forward and nod, any of the above, as long as you're both doing the same thing. People who assume power positions, feet up, leaning over a table, tend to have increased feelings of superiority, while those in less power poses, sitting, lower arms, tend to feel defensive and resentful. To reduce feelings of power imbalances, says environmental psychologist Sally Augustin, PhD, everyone in a conversation should be at the same level, at the same posture if you can. Now this is interesting. When men and women were asked the top 3 reasons they argue with their spouse, they agreed on only one. What was it? Money. The cliche is accurate. Scientists posed this question to about 4,000 men and women, and money was the only answer cited by both sides. Couples can cut down on financial conflicts by dividing money into 3 accounts, yours, mine, and ours, and holding quarterly meetings to discuss finances. When siblings between the ages of 3 and 7 are together, how many times per hour do they fight? 3 to 4. Siblings clash on average of 3.5s per hour, studies show, and with those fights lasting a total of 10 minutes. So the whole total is 10 minutes. So you got 50 good minutes out of that hour. To reduce squabbles, spend a few minutes every day alone with each child so they're not jockeying for attention, and give them chores to do jointly to build trust. Difficult conversations among groups of family members will get better if you have 2 of what? Women. This is interesting. Researchers from Carnegie Mellon, MIT, and elsewhere analyzed nearly 700 people working in groups and found that those with a higher proportion of females to males were more sensitive to input from everyone, more capable of researching compromise, and more efficient. Hear that, business world? At family meetings, you should vote about a matter before you discuss it. Many organizations are better at making decisions and participants express their views at the outset of a meeting. Otherwise, countless studies have shown that people who speak first and loudest tend to persuade others to go along with their positions, even when they're wrong. So it's important that you have them vote beforehand. And I realize we're coming down to our last 3 minutes, so let's see if we can get through this. Research showed that girls delay the onset of sexual activity if they have a close relationship with their fathers. This is quite common. In a landmark ADD health study of 90,000 adolescents, researchers found that girls who have close relationship with their fathers were more likely to hold off on having sex. Other studies have shown that involved dads also produce greater sociability and confidence, both daughters and sons. Which of these out-of-school activities is most popular for American children, 7 to 10? Team sports. American children play team sports, but parents often put too much pressure on the kids. To make sports more family-friendly, don't push athletics on your child. Don't use commands during games. Say good pass, not pass the ball. And don't engage in post-game analysis. Let the coaches coach. Parents should be supportive. Which behavior is more vital to a happy relationship? Celebrating your partner after accomplishment. Researchers at the University of California, Santa Barbara asked men and women to share good news with their partners. Those with the strongest relationships didn't just toast their partner's achievement. Good job, honey, but attribute it to their unique self. Only someone with your ingenuity could have won that big account. The scientists conclude that it's more important to congratulate a partner when things go right than to console when things go wrong. How many Americans attend a family reunion each year? 0, because we're in a pandemic. All right, sorry. 100 million. And it's something that I'm not even going to give you the answer because I know I'm out of time. But the fact of the matter is I hope we can get back this. And actually, most people say their family is happy. 3/4 of American adults say their family is the most important element of their lives. And 85% say that the family they have today is as close or closer they grew up with. So then what do happy families do right? Happy families adopt. They talk a lot. They go out and play, and they make it keep working on their family. In the end, this may be the most enduring lesson of all. That's the biggest secret. Thank you very much. I am Paul, Mr. Paul. We are Penn State. No, Prince George's Child Center, 9475 Losser Road. I am part of Project WIN, Wise Intervention Now, a resource for children with challenging behaviors in childcare. But we may be doing a little bit more with that as we go future because a lot of kids may be at home. Our website is childresource.org. And children learn what they live. If children live with hostility, they learn to fight. If children live with ridicule, they learn to be shy. If children live with tolerance, they learn to be patient. If children live with encouragement, they learn confidence. If children live with praise, they learn to appreciate. If children live with fairness, they learn justice. If children live with security, they learn faith. If children live with approval, they learn to like themselves. And if children live with acceptance and friendship, they learn to find love in the world. My sources, early childhood and social emotional health. I'm Stop Share. And I just want to say that thank you to everyone that was here today that gave me this opportunity. I know I didn't have much opportunity for much interaction back and forth, but I hope you found something today, something small, because change is hard. And this is a very difficult time, but we need to support the children in our lives. And as I end a lot of my workshops when I'm talking about children and children with special needs, the thing that children need are they need to be loved. They need to be held. They need to be read to. They need to make friends. And they're some of the most important things that children need. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thanks to the county executive, Angela also Brooks, for putting this together. And look, Carrie Ann put together a wonderful series for everybody here. We really need to give her a round of applause for putting this all together because this stuff is important during these trying times. So Carrie, thank you so much. Thank you for having the Resource Center here and this opportunity to present here in the community. You're awesome.
Oh. Thank you, Paul. That was, I told you it was going to be a rock star, rocking and rolling presentation. I knew it. I absolutely knew it. There was no doubt there.
Thank you very much.
Phenomenal. I really enjoyed this particular presentation. As someone who doesn't have children of her own just yet, I'm glad that what you shared is stuff that I'm already thinking of. I'm like, oh, see, I'm right.
That's good.
Yes.
Good.
So thank you so much for that. We have some comments in here that say, thank you.
Okay.
Great job, Mr. Paul.
You know me as Mr. Paul. Hey, if anybody has any questions about the presentation, I guess one of the things I'd like to do is I'm going to type to everyone my email address real quick into the, because I know, we really didn't have a chance to do the chat and stuff like that.
Sure.
Address into the chat box right now.
Yes.
I hope it came. My eyes are
No
going
problem.
bad looking at all these screens at this time. So there I am at parmstrong@pgcrc.org. Also, we can still be connected. You can call our resource center, 301-772-8420. Some of those calls are getting forward to us. Sometimes it takes us a little while and stuff like that. But listen to our messages. There may be better ways, and we're definitely available by phone. And in particular, we try to get you back to when we call by phone within 4 hours, or depending if it's on a weekend. And then by email as much as we can, except we're multitasking too much 2 days. Like,
Yeah.
if you can relate with that. So
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I certainly can. But I'm so grateful for some familiar faces being on with us throughout the series, and for new faces that joined us today. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. And just a few closing notes. Again, this was our mental health series for the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month, being put on by the Prince George's County Executive's Office, and facilitated through myself, Carrie Ann Peart, as a special advisor for Health and Human Services and Education, with an awesome cadre of presenters that I actually work with. I have the joy and pleasure of working with all the presenters in some capacity. And so I really just want to say thank you to all of them for putting presentations together, and for making time each week to join or to support each other throughout the facilitation of this. Folks know that they can continue reaching out to mental health at co.pg.md.us, the email that's on the flyer. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you want slide decks from other presentations, you can definitely reach out to me there and I can shoot those over to you. We are hoping to also get the recordings of all the presentations that were permitted to be recorded up and posted to our website, the county executive's website, at some point in the next few weeks. Now, you know how this goes, right? The government doesn't move too quickly. So be patient with me, but please email and ask if you don't see it up by the end of June, because of course recordings have to be reviewed, cut up, and then posted with our information technology team. So I'm going to be working on that as well. Again, if you have questions or concerns, please let us know. Please reach out to Paul directly for this particular presentation. That was awesome. And stay in touch with us. No, we were not offering CEUs or certificates for the series. That would have taken me a little bit more time to put it together. So that is something for us to think about in the next edition of this. So thank you for asking that question though. But I do appreciate you still participating, even though you didn't get a certificate. So thanks for staying with us. Do you think webinars will be available for June? Yes, I do think so, because I have a way of staying on top of things to make sure that they get done. So June is when I communicated with our internal team that I wanted things to get posted. So it should work. It should be up. Things should be up and available by June. But if you want slide decks before that, please reach out to the email address, and you can definitely get those slide decks sent to you directly. This has been an amazing ride. Well, thank you. Appreciate you riding with me. Awesome.
good job, Ian.
Yeah, thanks. Will I have any COK training? I'm not sure what COK stands for.
That's probably from a child care provider. That's called Core of Knowledge Training.
Awesome. Okay.
To answer that question, the Prince George's Child Resource Center is putting together, and we're constantly developing Core of Knowledge Training providers who are not providing care and those that are, and we're offering on these virtual platforms as well. Right now, we're offering them as free. They're going to be in typically probably 2-hour or 2 1.5-hour formats and a lot of interaction. We are adapting a lot of our trainings to the virtual platform so you can stay up to date on your core of knowledge that you need to stay certified, to stay licensed as a child care provider, as a family child care home, and those type of things. Those things are going to be available. We will continue to have free at least until the end of June. Then we may be working to a small pay scale at that point in time. But right now, everybody's under financial And so things like what we did today are free. We're going to continue to do that free at least to the end of June. So keep a look on our calendar, childresource.org, our Facebook site, and then we do send out, you know, those email blasts and things like that. I don't do that, but other people at the Resource Center, the other wonderful people at the Resource Center do that.
You delegate well, Paul. You
Yeah. No. Support staff at the Resource Center are fantastic.
Yes, they are. You guys have
Without them, I can't do my job. I can't do my job without them. They pick up everything. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Teams are great. I love my
Teams are good.
Well. So if there aren't any, I'm just looking at what's coming through to me in the chat. I'll let you know I found out about this meeting. I'm sorry I missed the others. All right. Yeah, it's from Nina. Thank you everyone for joining, and Mr. Paul for your enthusiasm and service. Good team makes all the difference.
The funny thing is, I try to tell a joke, but it's hard to do it on a virtual platform. I'm used to getting a little more feedback in person.
It's okay. We have to adapt. We have to adapt. It's been all good feedback.
I know. It's all about adapting. I just hope you guys know I'm trying to smile as much as I can because I want to connect somehow, some way.
You did well. You did well.
Thank you very much. I guess.
All right.
Sayonara. See you later.
All right, folks. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a safe rest of the week. All righty.